The Ward Scott Files is produced by Ward Scott Files, LLC.
Come on, everybody! Come on, everybody!
This is a Ward Scott Files advisory. The Ward Scott Files radio show may contain material not suited for people who are easily offended. Trust us on this. This show contains adult information and opinions. Please protect small children, sensitive pets, fragile houseplants, and liberal relatives. Thank you.
All right, good morning, good morning. Here we are in the undisclosed location once again of the Warthog Man Cave, where we broadcast to you the truth and nothing but the truth, because you can stand the truth. And there's so little of it being told. There's so many fictional narratives going on that today I want to try to clear some things up for you that you're hearing all over the place in the public discourse that is really very dangerous to listen to. And we're going to try to bring you all this in a unique way today, because we have a special guest whom we'll be sharing with you in about 15 minutes into the show, who will help us tell the story that we've been telling for quite a while. And that is the story that America ain't all that bad. And as things go, it's a doggone good example of how to try to do things right. So we're going to continue that story, and we're going to try to get it to you in various ways, and today is no exception. However, there is, out there on the campaign trail, a whole cacophony of madness, as I would say, going on among Democrat candidates that just seem to have lost, in my humble opinion, and I'm never wrong, their minds, their collective and individual minds. It doesn't matter whether you parse them individually and look at them, or whether you collect them and have them all in a kind of a mixed salad. It's just crazy stuff that's going on. And they just seem to be throwing out stuff to hope it sticks. And I want to dispel some of these myths during this show, and I've got a good helper here to do it. Now, Monday, according to Pam Key, who was watching this and writing about it, in New Hampshire, out of all places, a CNN town hall, which would make sense, the Communist News Network, Pocahontas Elizabeth Warren said she would have this wealth tax when, quote unquote, she's the president. And this is what it will pay for. And it will pay for everything, basically, I guess. And you won't have to do anything but sit on your doofus. It was going to pay for universal child care for every baby, 0 to 5. Are you serious? Every baby, 0 to 5? I mean, you got to sit down and you know, really have your thinking cap on to listen to this stuff and wonder who in the world could propose this with a straight face. Universal pre-K? I'm telling you right now, we can't pay here in Alachua County for security guards. I mean, you know, where's all this money coming from? It doesn't seem to be a problem to this. Universal college, and you know, college, college is the only thing you free is what, you know, we used to give them college already. We practically but give it to them. And the last thing they want is an education. They hope they don't get it, because if they got an education, they would question all this stuff. So this is one of the inside jokes of professors who, at least as I was, a conservative one, would say this, college, the only thing they pay for, education, the only thing they pay for, they hope they don't get. Because if they actually got it, they would, you know, see through a lot of the craziness that's out there. So nevertheless, universal college, and by the way, all that would do, I can tell you that right now, would be water down college. Knock back the student loan debt burden. In other words, have the taxpayers, the working people who come here and dig in, roll up their sleeves and go out and don't complain and make the money and pay the taxes, have them carry those who didn't plan wisely, who, you know, were betting on the future, and the future isn't working out the way they thought it would work out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And she makes up a figure. This is all a quote from this interview. Would still have nearly $1 trillion left over. Left over where? We're trillions of dollars in debt now. She says this was an answer to a question from probably a plant. She contends that basically to get to a middle class, you've got to have some post-high school technical training. You've also got to have some gumption. You've also got to be willing to go out and go to work and find a place where somebody would appreciate your talents. We have an excellent example of that today. And that's why I want to feature my good guest today in a little bit on this show. Big supporter of the Ward Scott Files, and I want to support people who support us, because we're all in this together. Somebody has to tell the story that's antithetical to this one being told, or the young people will fall for this, because we've got young people who know no difference. They've never been anywhere else. They've never heard anything else. They haven't had really, they think they have hardship, but they don't know what hardship is. We're going to flash over here to Venezuela in a minute where women are selling their hair to make ends meet. This is the kind of crazy stuff that's being tossed around out there on the liberal campaign trail. And then she goes into all these details about how, somebody else is going to pay for it and it's all going to make the world come true. And it's going to be called a wealth tax. Now, this wealth tax is going to punish those who take risk. Let me just tell you how you get wealthy. You take a risk and you have a vision and you work hard and you make good judgments about whom you want in the business with you, and you set standards. You set standards for yourself and for the people who work with you, and that then breeds to more success. So that is completely left out of this. Now, there's a Harvard poll out that is kind of eerie. I mean, I just wanted to put this in context before we get into our guest today. The Harvard poll says that the young voters are siding more with these Pocahontas Democrats. They are buying into all this, and one of the things that 2/3 of the young voters that were polled, and you always have to take a look at these polls to be sure you understand that they don't really have a crystal ball, but they picked a Democrat. And this is all according to Harvard's Institute of Politics and was published by Time magazine. Yeah, everywhere you look, as Jay says in my ear, you see something that's bought into the whole story. Time, and then CNN, and then Harvard, and it's really hard to get a story out that tells a little different version of it. We're going to try to help you hear that today. So that is going on. It looks as if a lot, and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, a Puerto Rican, is very, and I said about Puerto Rico having been a ward of the United States, has been used to entitlements and handouts from the United States, and much different than, say, for example, Cuba, which is not anywhere near in the position with the United States that Puerto Rico is. So Ocasio-Cortez is one of these young people with that background that is out here buying into this because it's just natural for them to think of the United States as a big cash cow, where if you just hold your hand out, somebody will give you a token. And it's something that we need to talk about, and we need to be very courageous about and talk very frankly about. As I said, in Venezuela, and this is and listen, I had some good friends, and there's some good people here in our town from Venezuela, and I had good friends years ago who came up here in the 70s from Caracas. They seemed to see it coming. They were the middle class people of Venezuela. They were very sophisticated people. They were very well educated people, and they got out of Venezuela. So now we've got a situation in Caracas, for example, which is being covered by AP News Network here, which I think doesn't like to tell the truth unless it has to. Quote unquote, Valerie Diaz covered her eyes and held her breath before looking in a hair salon mirror to see herself without much of the long dark hair that used to frame her face. She's a 16-year-old student. She was paid $100 for the shorn hair, money she'll use to help her family and buy a cell phone at a time when Venezuela's economic decline has led to shortages of food, medicine, hyperinflation, salaries are nearly worthless, increasing numbers of women are in poor neighborhoods selling their hair for use in wigs and extensions. It's really, really kind of unimaginable to some people here, but it's the real deal. Many have had to make personal care products last longer, and this, that, one, and another. Things that people here take for granted and actually use as a source of income is in scarce supply in these places. And this is something that even my guest here, whom a minute we'll be taking to talk to, wasn't aware of, that it's dipped to this type of low in a country that was once had a strong middle class, had a strong kind of economy. And yet, when you hear these Pocahontas and Harris and these people, they seem to be pitching the same story. So you got a wealth tax. The other thing that's coming under scrutiny, and I needed to tell you this, I think it's going to be important to keep your eye on this, is, of course, the Supreme Court is going to hear today a census citizenship question, okay? And that is whether or not the U.S. can ask each person in the country if he is an American citizen. The Supreme Court is going to hear that argument. It's the enumeration clause in Article 1 of the Constitution. It requires a nationwide census be taken every 10 years. So the Census Act empowers the head of the Commerce Department to determine what the census will ask, aside from the number of persons residing at every address in the nation. And I've been on these census boards that we've gone looking, in this case, in my experience, rural people, because the numbers count because you're entitled to some things maybe if we can identify where you are and what your needs are. So you can see that if you don't ask a citizenship question on a census form, you're going to be really loosey-goosey about what you're counting. Now, the first census to ask about citizenship was in 1820. The last was in 1950. And it was all of a sudden, it's been done in the past. Nobody had anything to say about it. But now the lefties are suing, claiming that inserting this question violates the Administrative Procedure Act. And you've got some judges that have gone along with it. And so we've got this continuum about, hello, come on down. You don't even have to identify yourself and get in line for whatever we got to offer you on the one hand. And on the other hand, we've got real conservative people who want to say, listen, wait a minute, we need some rules, we need some regulations. We need to also recognize that personal initiative and responsibility and risk-taking is enormously part of the success of people. And that seems to be getting lost in some of these conversations. So we've got 2 or 3 things going on. Just to give you a panorama, a really quick panorama, we'll see how that Supreme Court treats this citizenship question. It's going to be very, very important. And, you can see why they want to subpoena Trump's taxes, because they want to cast the guy, I don't think they're going to get their hands on it, but once they get their hands on, if they could, they would cast him as a villain who exploited all the people. All this is designed to be used in campaign conversation leading up to 2020. So this is just one more log on the fire that they want to try to get their hands on. I don't think, when I have researched, they can get it legally. And of course, Trump is suing Sleazy Cummings right off the bat for even asking for it. And that should tie it up in the courts for quite some time, so it'll probably never happen, even if it could happen. I want to talk with you a little bit now about my guest coming up with me now, Elio Piedra, who I've been noticed around town for quite a while as I've gone to various functions, and there was Elio with all kinds of energy and all kinds of positive vibes, as we say, and always a smile on his face. And gradually he came to my attention through some other people that he would be a really interesting guy to talk to on our show. He's also puts his money where his mouth is. He's one of the sponsors of our show, which I really applaud him for, because he understands that, it all takes a teamwork to make sure that we all, float the ship higher for everybody. So Elio is a musician, and I'm going to let him tell his story, but I've looked him up a little bit and researched him. Of course, he comes from Cuba, where he was trained, and we've covered this on Dance Alive National Ballet, where some of the best arts are. And he's going to explain to you in one of his stories anyway, and we talked about this. He's probably got 6 stories to tell. We're going to tell in serial form, because they walk us up from the time he was there to the time where he is now. And they're interesting enough that I think we'll probably break them up into pieces and tell them, maybe once a month or something like that as Elio comes in with us. But this is a story that doesn't get told enough, doesn't get recognized enough, and we have many of these type people with Elio and his friends right here in this community, and they really need to be a part of our community. You need to know who they are. You need to patronize them, and in Elio's case, he's in high demand already, so you may have to wait in line. But let's bring the camera in on him, Jay, and Elio, slide over a little bit with us now. There he is, Elio Piedra. He is really a fascinating guy. We've met a couple times, and 15-minute meeting with Elio, it goes into about 2 hours, and you don't know it's 2 hours. He's a real showman. He's a professional on the stage. He doesn't need any help from me. Elio, welcome to the Ward Scott Files, sir.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, Scott. It is my honor and pleasure to be here with you guys, and it is my honor and privilege to be on this side of the planet in the United States of America. Let me tell you that.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of all this, Elio, if you can. Bring our listeners up to date here. You were born in Cuba?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Cuba, actually in the middle of what we call the special period, or periodo especial in case you speak Spanish. But special period was that moment when we had zero everything, I don't know if you remember when the Russians were in Cuba, and then in the 90s, in 1990, they just said, oh, no more. And then Elio born the next year, and we didn't have anything at all. So basically, yes, I come from a very humble family, and I am very proud of it because everything that we had was nothing but, love and the values and the principle and the right standards to just pursue your dreams and your goals and work hard for it. And yes, I come from a humble family in Cuba that they actually has been supporting me my entire life, my entire career, and thanks to my family and the talent that they actually saw in myself, I made it to the School of Music, the one that I started with 9 years old.
9 years old?
9 years old. Yeah, when I was 9, I actually started this test to get into the music, elementary music in Cuba. And then, from that point, I could tell you that my life changed. Why? Because number one, to get into that school, you gotta be like a high class. All right. Let's pay attention to this. You gotta be on the high class in Cuba if you can get into this school. We were very again, a humble family. We wouldn't make it. But with the help of and the recognition of teachers that they were actually in person, all right? And this test, sometimes, let me tell you something, they try to, I will say, trick me out. The people that were the judges to get into the school. And these other teachers say, you know what? I saw the talent of you, and I think you are going to be like a great musician in the future, a great entertainer. You have a lot of potential, so there is no way that, we are passing on you. So basically, I was lucky enough to get into the School of Music at 9 years old in the specialties of percussion and piano. Percussion and drum set are it is my first specialty. And from there, with 11 years old, I had the opportunity to start performing already at the most important jazz festivals around Cuba, in Pinar del Rio, which is my province, my state in Cuba, and also in Havana. When I was only 17, I won the International Jazz Festival in Havana that is called Joyas, all right? I think it was like 2009. And then from there, a lot of doors opened. And we were so excited, so happy because I wasn't by myself. I was playing with a wonderful quintet, jazz quintet, but that actually was performing with me. But the thing with this is that, like everything that the government promised to us, we didn't get any of that. We won the festival, but we couldn't get any of that. And Scott, you were mentioning something that is really important. That is when people here ask for free everything, and sometimes I get blind and I get shocked by that, and I come from that place.
Yeah, you come from a place where you're promised everything free.
Exactly. I am coming from that place that I can tell you that it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work because this is the thing. I think we are in a wonderful country, the greatest country in the planet. All right, and I can tell you that because I've been here like 7 years and a half. It's gonna be 8 years this year actually, and I am living my dream. I'm living my dream, what we call the American dream, which is coming here to the United States, living your dreams, making your living, but living your making. All right, how can you do that? Let's go back to my story. So when I was 11, I was developing all my jazz festivals. All right, I had the opportunity to win the International Jazz Festival once again, but to do that, I had to go to a lot of rehearsals. We had to find instruments, find resources, staff that we didn't have. You know, the reason that I have these beautiful maracas right here, you know, is because even though just a pair of maracas, it was so hard to find in Cuba, so hard to find in Cuba. And then, you know, here in America, you have the opportunity to find anything that you have. You go to Amazon.com, you go to eBay, you go to Guitar Center, you go to local stores. By the way, support your local stores, support your community, give some love out there. So this is really amazing. How many tools, all the possibilities are endless in this country. So it took me just a second to realize that, you know, you have great opportunities. All you need to do is like take risk. Another thing that you mentioned that amazed me, take risk. I am gonna tell you something. If you don't take risk, you cannot grow. If you cannot grow, you cannot become your best. If you cannot become your best, you cannot be happy. If you're not happy, what else is out there for you? So let me tell you something. Going back to my story. So after that, you know, I was lucky enough, all right, to graduate from the National Conservatory, all right, in Cuba. So I went from the elementary school from 9 years old until I had like 15, and then my college was at the National Conservatory in Pinar del Rio as well. And being at the National Conservatory already, you know, working hard, because I was working already. I was 16 years old, 2 years before my graduation, that was when I was 18. And then being there working and studying and playing jazz, playing with the symphony orchestra during 4 years, playing with the popular Cuban music, the bands that they were the most popular bands back in the days, you know, in my generation. And I was building my name. And then, you know what happened? The military service called me. Guess what? My mom called me one morning, and my entire world went down, fell apart. Hey kid, you gotta go to the military service next week. And I was like, but I didn't. Do I have any choices? No, you don't. You must go. And this is the thing. This is how things work on this type of country, this type of system, like mine. Unfortunately, my government doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. None of it. Our people are so wonderful, but you know, the rules and this stuff. And this is a great example of that. How your mom is calling you to tell you, all right, to tell you that you are going to the Cuban army just because they want you to go, but you don't have any choices because that's the system where you get everything free. So just listen to this. So, end of the story of this part, I went to the military service for a year when actually it was nothing but military, or actually for the first, I will say for the first half, so you don't get confused. The first half of it was military stuff, just simple basic stuff, and the second half, it was anything else. It was just at the farms, you know, helping. And then I realized that actually they've been using the young generation to do the work, all right, that the work that they're supposed to do for, you know, our people. So basically, that's how I used to see that. And I never, ever could agree with it, because I was developing my career, developing my talents, getting ready, developing myself to be ready to share my talents and my skills with the world out there. So because I deeply believe, I really believe that if you have talents and skills, you have passion, you need to pursue those passions. You need to follow your dreams, your goals, and then become your best. You need to grow and share that with everybody out there. If you don't do it, you're going to be selfish. Let me tell you something. And this is what amazed me about this wonderful country, that this country gives you the opportunity to develop yourself, to become your best, to be amazing. But to be able to do that, again, you need to take risks. So you can grow, as I already mentioned. And you know, the opportunities, the instruments, the gear, you know, all the cables, all the equipment that you need to make a concert, a festival, something happen, is really important. So it took me really, really nothing, all right, to realize that when I get to this country. But before I got here, you know, I had a wonderful love. I would say the love of my life. All right. So after I was to the when I was in the military service, after I actually finished the military service, and in the process, all right, I was in the military service, but in the process, I was engaged to this beautiful, wonderful, and extraordinary woman that I had the opportunity to meet when I was 9 years old. All right, and pay attention because this is about to get lovely. So this beautiful lady who once was one of the students at my school of music, a clarinet player, and her name is Yareli Serrano. We fell in love. All right, we fell in love when we were 11. We started dating, and then she came when she was 13 years old. And then a lot of stuff happening. You know, I want to mention something. Back in the days, you used to send a letter from here to Cuba or Cuba to the United States. Whereas it took months. It took like 3-4 months to get there. And sometimes the letter will get lost. I don't know. It's weird, but it will get lost. But with that say, I can tell that it was super hard to keep track of everything to keep the relationship going. And so we kind of like we went apart. We went away for a little bit. We didn't know what was going on, but I was lucky enough to keep that flame in the heart of this beautiful lady. And then she went 6 years later, and then she brought this paper with her, and I didn't have any idea. I didn't have any idea of what was that paper about. And then she said, you know what? This means that we can be together for the rest of our life. And I was like this. I was just in shock. But she asked me if I would be interested in coming with her to the United States. Thing that I never, happened to think about. And then I said, you know what? Yes, I am willing to take whatever it takes to be with you and to be together and to grow together and to create our family and everything. And I was only 18. Remember, I was 18. I just finished my military service, but I wanted to go back and bring this beautiful girl into my life. So you know how things happen back in the days. So in the process of the military service, okay, I started developing the paperwork. I started working on the paperwork so I could leave Cuba. And then I did, ladies and gentlemen, I did. I left Cuba on November 18th on 2011. And the hardest part of leaving Cuba was leaving my family behind, was leaving my dad, my mom, my grandmas, my grandpa. It was super hard. Every single part of your body will hurt when that door at the airport, the international airport of Havana, Jose Marti, will close behind you. Let me tell you something. Every single part of your body will hurt because when you are born and raised in this humble family that is been working and has been there for you and it's been supporting you, giving you everything that you have now that you may become in the future. And it is, you get speechless, all right? You get in shock when that door closes at the airport and you have an entire world waiting for you. But behind you are leaving your mom, your dad, and your family. It hurts. But let me tell you something else. After that, I got to this wonderful country, and it's been giving me opportunities from the first time that I got here. So when I came, I went straight to Miami, of course, the International Airport of Miami, and then I spent there just a few hours. And I went straight to Florida to my wife's family. And after that, I had the opportunity to receive a call from one of the most important artists from Cuba in my state. Her name is Marilena Lasso. She's a award-winning artist, and it's been all over the world. And then she realized she heard that Elio was here in South Florida. And then she called me. We had a wonderful concert in Miami Gardens. And then after that, a lot of different, shows, like American TV shows and international, TV, I would say TV companies call me to be on the show, like playing with the house band. And I was super excited about it. But my wife, back in the days, at that moment, was actually starting developing her bachelor on criminology and psychology and different, I would say, careers from the mental health counselor. And then she said, you know what? We got to go to Gainesville. We need to go to Gainesville because that's where one of the most amazing universities in the planet are, and I want to be there. And I said, yes, because the reason that I came here was because of her. And I said, yes, I'm going with you, whatever it takes. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there supporting you, and we're going to do this together. I didn't know that what was waiting for me. I didn't know what this community was about. I didn't know anything. The English that you are listening right now, I didn't know anything about it. And you know what? I put myself in the position that I said, I want to speak English. I want to learn the system. I want to learn from this country. I want to learn from all the wonderful opportunities that everybody is talking about. Because, my family actually never taught me a wrong thing, a bad thing about the United States, but good things, only good things. Like, it may be not perfect, like everything out there, but it's the best country in the world. If you can take advantage of it, you are gonna make it. You are gonna make it. And then I can tell you that my first job was as a dishwasher at a restaurant that is closed now, unfortunately, because I used to love it so much. The Sabor restaurant in Tioga Town Center of Tioga, as some people call it. And it was my first job. And back in the days, I remember it was a different owner than the last owner that they had. It was the owners of Miapa Latin Cafe. By the way, we say hello to Miapa Latin Cafe. I love them so much because they are a great supporter of this wonderful community. So, I went to Sabore and they say, we have this job. He said, this washer. And I was like, oh, this washer, that sounds so important to me. I didn't speak any English, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, I was in the process of learning English. So this washer for me sounds like like an important job at the, at some office or something. And then when I get there, they say, oh no, but it's washing dishes. But I say, all right, it's washing dishes, but I think it's an honorable job that you can actually start, growing from there. So I spent 4 months, all right, working as a dishwasher at this amazing place. And after 4 months, the kitchen was going crazy. People were leaving and moving. And I was like, all right, I think this is a great opportunity to us, for, probably start working at the kitchen. And that's how it happened. I asked for the chef at that time was Chef Willie Hernandez, an amazing person. And that I am very grateful for him because he gave me the opportunity to start working at the kitchen after 4 months washing dishes. Let me tell you, washing dishes is not fun, all right? When the amount of dishes is so huge. But when you have that in your heart that is telling you, you need to do it. You need to start with your first step, all right, in this wonderful country. I am grateful for it. So, Chef Willie gave me the opportunity to start working at the kitchen together with the sous chef Alex de Rosario, both from Dominican Republic. Wonderful people, amazing people, hard workers, and people. They are an inspiration, I will say, for all the people that are in the chef, in the kitchen, in the cuisine, and the gastronomy industry. All right, so I started working at the kitchen after 4 months, and you know what? I ended up being the right hand of the chef after, I will say, after 8 years after that, because I spent like 8 years in the kitchen. And then I will say that it was a wonderful experience, all right? And number one, why was it wonderful? Because you may ask yourself, but why wonderful? You've been a musician all your life. You don't know anything. You didn't know how to cook an eggs, how to make a soup or anything like that. But let me tell you something. When you when someone or something take you from the place that you are in your life and put you in an uncomfortable zone, is when you value what you got the most. Think about it. And then, that life, God, something took me from this place and placed me in the different spot. But it was for a reason. And I was lucky to just understand the situation, understand how important was this experience for me. And saying that, I want to mention something to you. Whatever is happening in your life, whatever situation you may have, is not here to stay. It's here to pass, and it's going to pass. So you take the better from it, and you grow, and you make yourself a better everything, a better person, a better worker, a better whatever your specialty are. If you are a contractor, you are going to become a better contractor just because of that situation. Because you want me to tell you something? Today, I am so grateful because that happened to me. All right? That happened to me for a reason. And now, saying that after a year of working at the kitchen, in the meanwhile, I was playing music. Yes, I was playing music because let me tell you something else. You never, ever let anyone steal your dream. Never let anyone tell you that you cannot do it, because you can. The only one who can tell you that is yourself. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you how I did it. So while I was working at the kitchen, all right, the first months actually that I started working at the kitchen, I asked the owner, hey, do you think it would be ideal? Do you think it would be nice if I can bring like a different environment, special environment to your clients and offer a brand new experience? And the guy was like, what are you talking about, Elio? I am talking about music. I am a musician. They couldn't believe it. Are you serious? You've been washing dishes for 4 months and now you're working at the kitchen. You never mentioned that you're a musician. And I was like, well, I was, trying to be quiet, but I am ready, man. I am ready for the world out there. Let me bring you that music. And I am going to create a brand new environment for you. And I was lucky enough to get that opportunity. They say, yes, I'll allow you to play some music for us here. And I did. I started playing piano, and then my wife actually was playing with me back in the days clarinet. So we have a wonderful quartet: piano, clarinet, guitar, and then a guy playing cajon. So percussion. Cajon, it is a percussion instrument. And then I started doing that. I also started playing my timbales, all right, which is a major percussion instrument. And with Tropics, which is a wonderful Latin band from here, from Gainesville, Florida, and I am very grateful for them because they gave me opportunity when I didn't have any. And I was playing timbales with them first, and then also Mari Liquori, I will say, which is an amazing person. Mari Liquori, yeah, amazing person, amazing jazz player, and a good friend of mine. He gave me the opportunity. Scott Wilson. I was lucky to have some mentorship by Scott Wilson, the director of the jazz program, the University of Florida, Ken Broadway. I could mention some people that actually impact my life in some way, and they gave me opportunity. When I mean opportunity could be a tip, could be an advice, could be something, some light, all right? Sunlight, something that could inspire you or could lead you to good things, to something in your career. So basically, all these people didn't know about me, but I heard about them. And I didn't wait for them to knock on my door. I went door to door here in Gainesville, knocking and say, hey, my name is Elio. My name is Elio Piedra. I can do this, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And that's how I started. So your question would be, how you did it? How was your transition from the kitchen, from all these things, this entire completely different world that you were developing into the music industry? All right, let me tell you something. I never stopped. I never stopped doing what I'm doing right now, okay? And eventually at the end of this serial shows, you'll realize how I did the whole thing. But the one thing that I was doing is never stop dreaming and drumming. All right, I was playing my drums, but I was dreaming about it, and I was putting action into it. Because if you have a dream, and number one, you don't protect it, and number two, you don't work hard on your dream to develop it and to make it bigger, to grow it, and then so you can make it different in your community, make it different in your country, make it different in yourself. So I kept going, and then I started knocking on some doors. University of Florida, Santa Fe College, by the way. I wanted to say hello to Santa Fe College. Laura Haynes.
Yes,
the
yes, know her
president.
well, yeah.
I love Laura. Laura was a wonderful person from the beginning. It is a wonderful person to me from the beginning. And then actually, I'm about to make a wonderful video production as part of the Elio Piedra Bringing the Fiesta to You shows. And Santa Fe College is part of it. And also, I would like to mention Ed Mendo. Ed Mendo from Asian Rhythms Drum Shop on 10th Avenue and 6th Street. That guy, it is one of the most special human beings. Because when I was nobody, absolutely nobody, he put me on stage with the drum set. He gave me a six, and he said to the audience, listen to this guy. So he gave me opportunity. He gave me the chance to be heard by others, to just to showcase my talents. And I am grateful for that, Ed. If you are watching, thank you for tuning in, and share this. Please like and share this with everybody so we can inspire some generation, some new people here, a new generation, and we can tell you and we can let you know that you can make it. You can make it. So after that I was knocking on some doors, I started playing on some restaurants like Emiliano's Cafe, Leonardo 706. I already mentioned Sabore. I started doing a lot of corporate events. I started working with different corporations. I started working with renowned artists such as Chucho Valdez Jr., Jennifer Holiday, award-winning Grammy artist from the gospel industry, and then I started doing a lot of different stuff. I started collaborating with Marty Liqueur as well in the Gainesville Jazz Festival, and then I started traveling the United States as well. And before I get to my touring season, I wanted to mention something really interesting about the opportunities of this country. You know how amazing it is that you can have a company, all right, to send you the instrument and the sources that you need. How amazing is that? All right, that you can have your maracas, but you can have your timbales, but you also can have your drum set and your cymbals and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I have my endorsements. Yes, I do have them, and I would like to actually say hello to them. Soto Cymbals from LA, California, Gumbut's Percussion, Aquarium Drums Head, Tama Drum Set, Innovative Percussion Sticks, and I am grateful for them. I didn't know about that. Imagine me, I already mentioned that I came from Cuba. I come from a country that when you are a school of music, all right? The school of music, you don't have the instruments. You don't have all of this. And right here in this country, you have these endorsements that they don't only send you the instrument, but they support you on social media. They give you exposure to the world out there as an artist. So it's just too much to be good, you know what I mean? But when you earn it, when you work for it, because this is the thing, for me to be able to get at that point in my life, in my career, it's not like they call me, hey Elio, would you like to be part of the family? No, it wasn't that good. It was hard. It was hard because I had to pay my flight ticket to go to the NAMM show in California, Anaheim, at the convention center. Over 100,000 people in that huge convention center. And then I found Gumball's Percussion, and then I start playing and jamming and talking and stretching and networking with different big artists such as Horacio El Negro Hernandez, Alex Acuña, who was, it is probably one of the biggest Latin percussion artists in the world. He's been recording and playing for, Madonna, all the big artists out there, for Earth, Wind and Fire, for the Disney, for all the soundtrack for the movies, everything. And then I had the opportunity to learn from these people, to meet these people, and they gave me the opportunity to play with them. So how that happened? Well, because they were playing there, and I stopped by and I say, hey, I want to play. Oh, do you play? Yes, I am a Cuban percussionist. My name is Elio, and I think we can have a good time here. So I started jamming with them on stage because, you have different sections that you can expose your instrument and your brand. And then the artist relation manager, Rich Mahicaro, who once day was one of the percussionists for Chicago, the Chicago man, he said, wait a minute, who is that guy who is playing over there with Alex Acuna? And another guy said, well, I think I heard it, his name is Elio, and I think he's Cuban, and the Cuban percussionists, they are a little bit on fire. And so the guy was like, all right, I want to talk to him. So basically, I had the opportunity to speak to this amazing guy, and it was really interesting to me, the fact like I didn't have any background at that time here in the United States, but I was building it. I was building it already, working with award-winning Grammy artists, and I was about to get into my tourist season and all of that. And I was trying to make an impact and a difference in my community. And then what happened was that he said, you know what? We're going to sign you up. You are going to become one of our endorsers here in the United States. And I was speechless once again.
That's tough if you're speechless. I swear. Elio, I was just sitting here thinking, looking at some of the notes coming in, Elio, as you're talking. And it's very seldom anybody can keep me silent on the mic. And I've been silent on the mic now for over a half an hour, fascinated listening to Elio's energy and story. And it's just really beginning. He's still a young man. And I don't want to put you on the spot. How old are you now, Elio?
27.
He's 27. So, he's been pursuing his dream, first of all, in a place like Cuba. And he told me before we went on the air that these instruments you have here on the table, you couldn't even get in Cuba, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very, very simple instrument, maracas. It's a Cuban instrument. It is a wonderful instrument. But you see how tiny it is, how cheap it is to get the maracas. And we didn't have the opportunity to have even maracas in Cuba. It was so hard to have even maracas in Cuba. So I think that's one of the most amazing things that I found out about this country, is that this country gives you the opportunity, the tools, the sources that you need to develop yourself, to develop your dreams, to pursue your goals. And at the same time, in that process, you grow and you become a better person, and you become a better human being, and you become a better whatever you do. I want to be a better musician, but you can be a better, a better chef, a better lawyer,
Right.
everything.
And believe me, I can relate to that dishes stuff. I did that once. Looking at his story, we just heard in our mic here, which a lot of people looking at your story. Now, Elio, I'm very interested in, here's the thing about Elio and the Ward Scott Files. He, once again, made it known to us that he watched the show and appreciated what we did and wanted to be a part of the show and was not in the least bit timid about it. And I got to tell you, that's really very interesting, because there are a lot of people who say, well, I watch the show, but I really am, I don't want to be, out there publicly because I'm afraid of my business, well, this, that, one, another. Not Elio. And I don't think anybody could hold this young man back, because he has at the center of his heart art. And I still believe that art is the thing that humanizes, keeps us all together, keeps us on the same page. So that's going to sustain him for a long time, and he has that passion. And hey, lots of times it's tough as the artist. Having been around the written form of art, you get rejected a lot, and in writing, it's a very lonely experience. Fortunately for the musician, it's kind of an outward community experience. You can get immediate feedback from people watching you. So there are all sorts of people here on the show that we are artists, and Elio is a fascinating one with energy. As I said the other day, we met for about 15 minutes, and before it was over, it was a couple hours, and we had a great time. And he's just begun to tell the story. We've got so much story to tell here that we're really going to serialize it and keep it going for a while. Now, Elio, how many people book you now here locally, and who's booking what? I want you to give a moment here for you because you're generating interest here and people watching. What are you available to do? How do they get a hold of you? What is all that business? Anything you want to say about that?
Well, let me tell you something. I would like to go back and say once again that my name is Elio Piedra and I am a professional musician and entertainer, and I do everything from festivals, private events, weddings, social events, corporate functions, everything. I do everything. You can, to book me, you can go to eliopiedra.com and you can click on that tab that is right there, just right there. It says hire me. When you click over there, I have my rates, my packages, everything. And you can also go to my monthly calendar and follow the fiesta, because that's what I do, bringing the fiesta to you.
Well, that's fascinating, and you've mentioned some people who are very good friends of mine. Marty LaCoria is one of them, and Marty and I go way back into the '70s when he was here as a track star, and I was out there kind of tagging along with him. And he's done wonders there with the 706 and bringing jazz to the area. And I know that the town of Tioga also has a jazz festival.
Yeah, actually, I would like to put that word out there that the Gainesville Jazz Festival is coming up. I guess it's May 4th. It's going to be at town of Tioga. I am not part of it, but because I am a huge supporter of my colleagues here in the community, and I love so much, and I appreciate all the support that they give me all the time. I want to make sure that you know that this wonderful jazz festival hosted by the Friend of Jazz organization from Gainesville is happening this May 4th, and Marty LaCoria is part of it. So please, guys, stop by town of Tioga May 4th to enjoy the Gainesville Jazz Festival.
Well, Elio Piedra is a force in the community, has been a force wherever he goes. He's one of the fellows who has a story to tell that we wanted to share with you. I think when you put it up next to something that Elizabeth Warren and those people are saying, there's a stark contrast. You can draw your own conclusions about which side of the ledger makes more sense to you. I've always been brought up in a family that really was hard work, and somehow that was part of America, and especially my father's generation. The government really wasn't around to help out too much. You just got out there and got an education as best you could. My father actually got an education. Elio, this might be interesting to you since you're a musician. My father won the state contest in Illinois in the saxophone, and he played on the river, in the Mississippi River, with his mother in a riverboat, where in those days in America there was a lot of activity on its rivers, and his mother played the piano, and my father played the saxophone, and they had this thing going on, and they were entertainers. And my father had graduated from his high school, number one in his high school, but he didn't have any money to go to college. And so he was working with his mother, who was a beautiful woman. I only saw her a couple times as she was later in life with my grandmother, but she was blue-eyed, blonde-haired, all that business, very talented, could sing. And there were engineers who used to come to the riverboat to, socialize and drink and be entertained, who were working on things associated with the river, like locks and dams and things like this. And they were very taken by my father, and these stories have come down through the family. I was obviously not there to see it. But they said, "What are you doing, young man, with your life?" And he says, "Well, I'm here with my mother playing music." And they said, "Well, you ought to be going to college." And he said, "Well, I don't have the money to go to college." And they said, "We'll send you to college. And when you get out, you can pay us back then, because we really believe that you need to stretch out and take advantage of what your skills are," because he had graduated first in his class. So he went off to the university and became an engineer and came back and paid those guys back. And this is what really broke his heart. Just as he got ready to start this life, and World War II broke out. And he had to give up everything and go into the combat engineers and go to the Pacific Theater, where he was for 4 years in heavy combat, wounded twice,
Wow.
Purple Heart, Bronze Star, all this kind of business. And my mother only knew where he was by following some of the newspaper accounts of where the 77th Combat Engineers were. They were in the heaviest fighting. They had to fight with flamethrowers and amphibious landings and
Wow.
all this kind of stuff. And my problem with all this, from my point of view, Elio, is why I especially like to hear your stories about what you were living with under this promise that turned out to be phony. Everything free didn't really happen, you know.
Yeah.
Is now we got a generation of young'uns here in the United States who probably can't relate to my father's story if they even know it as well as you can. You know, you understand what it is to have to dig out from under the rubble, so to speak, and go out looking for where things can work. He came back from World War II, never asked any favors of anybody, and went back to work. Okay, didn't want anybody to make special treatment of him or any of that sort of business. He just went to work, and later on, of course, that generation reached the end of their lifespan, and I think those stories are grossly unappreciated here about what that generation did. Just so you'll know, my mother will be 107 in July.
Wow.
And she's got all her faculties. She's very much with it. And she's probably what they call in this country the last of the great American generation.
Wow.
That generation can relate to the story you're telling. They came through the Depression when everything hit rock bottom here. The only thing that got my mother through the Depression was family, like you talk about. They all pulled together. They didn't have government assistance. The whole thing had broken. It was after World War I. And they had food, but they didn't have money, but they had each other. And one of the ways they entertained each other was through music. And each one of them could play an instrument. And my mother played the piano. My grandfather played the fiddle. Her father played the fiddle. And what they would do to entertain themselves, there's no television, you know, no anything like that. They would roll up the rug.
That's awesome.
And they would have all the neighbors in, and they would create their own entertainment.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. And to this day, my mother sits down at the piano and plays the piano. And it's out on Facebook, and people see her do it, and they just can't believe it. But that's the way, and you said something very important to me that you really didn't touch on, and we'll build a story around this later, about art and oppression. Do you remember what you said to me over coffee the other day?
Yeah, actually.
I'd like to close with that.
Yeah,
video.
actually, I am very, not very, but a little emotional now because I remember what I mentioned to Ward about this. I was performing at the Bellagio Hotel. I remember a beautiful performing arts, and then a report came to me, and it actually made me answer a question that it was like a big question in front of the audience, and then he said, "All right, what is that make you guys feel like the music?" The Cuban people, I mean, the Cuban musicians, the Cuban community, the Cubans in general. Why is that important? The arts, the music, and your passion for it. And you know, without thinking too much, I said, that's our escape, all right, from our reality. That's our escape from all the suffering. And that's the only thing that they cannot take away from us. All right? Our music and our arts is the only thing that no matter what happened, the government cannot take that away from us. And I am so fortunate, I can tell you, to be here in this side of the planet, pursuing my dreams, helping my family, doing wonderful things, and trying to make this a better place for myself and for everybody out there, and contributing with the universe, as I call. What are you doing today to contribute to the universe? Yes, because we gotta do something. And let me tell you something that if I still have a minute at least. Most people I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about this. Why is that most people that actually American people that live here, they don't value what they have. They don't know what they have. What you have is one diamond. It is a diamond, like huge. This is the greatest country in the world, and people they don't know or they don't want to understand the system on work on them. You know, people just believe in the 40 hours, the 7 days, the here and there, and then the retirement. Do you know that? For example, how long you been retired?
Oh, a long time, yeah.
But
I haven't stopped working.
But this is the thing. This is not retired
Right.
because you are making an impact in the world. So because retirement is like fading out, you know, you are no here, you are no sharing your skills. You still, even when you retire, you still have talent, skills. Just keep on going, making an impact. Like War right here, my friend. I am very happy to be here.
Well, Elio, thanks so much for coming by. We'll have him back again, and we'll continue some of the stories that are unfolding in his life and emphasize something. Take us away with you that they can't take away your art, they can't take away your music, they can't take away your painting, they can't take away your writing, they can't take away your dance. And that will be your expression of joy, and it will keep you going as it did my mother's family through the Depression and poverty, really. They would roll up the rugs, they'd get out the instruments, and they'd make their own joy, and it kept them going through a terrible thing in her life, that from which I can say now she's never recovered. Every person who went through the Depression, and there are not many of them left. In fact, she might be one of the last ones on the earth. They have never recovered. You know, she won't let me leave a light on when I leave the room. She won't let me do anything that would be, just a thoughtless use of energy that could be easily used more wisely. It's just something. Eat all. I was taught to clean up my plate. Every drop of food is important. If it's on your plate, you eat it all. I see some of the people go to these restaurants and the kids get up and half the stuff they got is still on the plate. That would never happen in a family that came through the Depression. So, Elio, thanks so much for coming by. Share this with your friends. Make sure you go and check out Elio Piedra's website and book him for things. He's got a lot of energy. Fun story to tell. We'll be back with him at some point in the future. So thanks so much, Elio, for coming by. A Warthog Command Center out.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Do you want to put your business in front of 10,000 new customers? Visit wardscottfiles.tv today for more information on our advertising opportunities.